Why are they becoming a crisis here in California? And they're not throughout the rest of the United States. We have to take a step back and say, what are we doing here in California that's different from everywhere else?
According to the latest report, California alone has 1/3 of the U.S. homeless population. Today, I sit down with Vern Pearson, district attorney with El Dorado County, to talk about what we have done in California that led us down this path and what the possible solutions are, if there is any.
It is a handful of really bad policy decisions. It's well intentioned, but it's wrong. Right now, what we have is you can be arrested or cited over and over and over and over again, and there's no consequence. And it's just getting worse and worse across California.
Do you think we can fix this in the future?
We have to change that. It's not a left or right thing. It's a common sense thing.
Low-key euphoric feeling, and also like a boost in energy.
Samer Fawaz is a former Kratom user who had been using it for around 6 years. A friend introduced him to the drug, and he bought it online in a powdered form. He would use it regularly to get energy, but Fawaz later realized he was becoming dependent on it.
And when I got off of it, I felt significant withdrawals for a few weeks. Major stomach issues, like low-grade depression, and the loss of energy completely. Like I had to really recalibrate back to normal.
Only after breaking the addiction did he realize it had been numbing his emotions and causing him stomach problems. Now that he's drug-free, he says it's amazing to not be controlled by the need to use substances. Luckily, Fawaz didn't experience major side effects, but others who've used it in higher doses or in combination with other drugs have.
Affects everything from like nausea, diarrhea, and constipation. So a lot of the digestive system area, and also the nervous system. It affects cognition, memory, confusion, gait. It's led some people to psychosis at high doses.
David Cohen is a director at Harmony Place Addiction Treatment Centers. He says Kratom is largely unregulated and unstudied, so we don't know how much is too much or what the long-term effects are. In some cases, Kratom use has led to death. Kratom sellers are facing a raft of lawsuits because of this.
Kratom is deemed a new food right now in commerce in the U.S. It's our belief that the Kratom industry needs additional regulation. We need more guardrails.
Ryan Nidell is a Kratom producer, seller, and user. He says more regulation may educate people and prevent more bad things from happening. David Cohen, who helps people with addiction, says there should be a cultural shift.
This is America, and we take pills to go up, we take pills to go down. I mean, we are sort of programmed to take medications to feel better.
Mother's little helper.
We can, back up from that process of, not being able to tolerate any sort of discomfort.
He believes people need to find a purpose in life that doesn't involve substance addiction. He says some pain and discomfort is necessary for growth, and that these things can't be resolved with medication. Faye Quarter, NTD News.
And receptor binding, exactly, it's structure.
And Congressman Dr. Rich McCormick, a physician, disputed the theory that the virus came naturally from a pangolin or any other animal.
If it exists in the species, it has to be able to propagate and continue. It doesn't just go away. It's not just found in the same proximity of a species, but inside the species with antibodies and resistance. To say that it's just because it's in the same area as somewhere that a dog was found or a cat was found or a penguin, whatever you want to say, is for me just like smear some COVID on this wood and say, look, it came from this wood. To give our people who are watching this who are maybe not medical background to understand that's obviously impossible. Just like it's impossible to have a virus that exists inside of an animal species go away or not have any sort of immune response or any propagation if that's where it came from in the beginning.
And Representative Ronnie Jackson, also a physician, said this.
You gathered every bit of this new additional information, which we don't know exactly what it was or where it came from. You completely changed your hypothesis. You collaborated with your co-authors, and you wrote the proximal origins paper all in that period of time. I just want to know, my time's up, but I just want you to know that sounds completely ridiculous to the American people.
The FBI and the Department of Energy have both said that COVID-19 likely came from a lab. Jason Berry, NTD News.
And the powers that come along with it goes a lot further than that. He wrote this: The frequency, scale, and complexity of health emergencies continues to increase year on year, driven by many of the same long-term trends that continue to accelerate the emergence and re-emergence of epidemic-prone diseases. And what are these? He says it. Global political conflict, the collapse of trade leading to famine and shortages of essential goods, the intensification of ecological degradation and climate change, weakened health systems, and widening health, economic, and social inequalities. So how do we then fight the emergence of epidemic-prone diseases, as he suggests? How do we stop the next pandemic? Well, apparently it means controlling just about everything else in the world. Controls on international relations, controls on trade and capitalism, policies to fight inequality, not just economically, but also socially. And of course, the near total remaking of society that has been recommended elsewhere to fight climate change. The Trojan horse is being rolled right now as we speak into the halls of power, and it may soon be sprung open. An anomaly, including the rate currently we're seeing right now. They appear to be more attributed on that to poor policies in government land management. The ice caps are not melting. In fact, NASA showed this in 2015. It is already debunked. The list goes on. And on the hottest day ever that they're preaching about right now, people ended up questioning that as well. It turns out the hottest day ever recorded on Earth was actually just the hottest day since they started keeping track of the data around the late 1970s, at least globally. Go figure. We start collecting weather data in parts of the world that did not previously track weather data, and suddenly we see weather that we did not see before. The temperature in New York, by the way, on July 3rd, for example, it was 88 degrees. Hardly the hottest day we've ever had. It also turned out it wasn't official, by the way. As CNBC noted, it was unofficial data from U.S. researchers. But regardless, you got to stay with the narrative here. What really matters, as they noted, is that climate scientists are deeply concerned. But regardless, it all now enters the public record. It joins the rest of the settled science. And even though there is nuance and half-truths, these records are going to help bolster the narrative of climate change. And it's also not the kind of science that other scientists are actually allowed to question. California lawmakers actually tried making it illegal to question climate change back in 2016. And we've actually seen similar moves since then elsewhere in the world. But I can tell you, one climate criminal to another, climate change appears to be a lot less about the climate and a whole lot more about the agenda. You see, climate change is not just skewed data on weather. Climate change is a Trojan horse. And inside of it are the legions of a globalist system poised to jump out and share their...
There for a long time, but it's not enforced. So people just skirt it, they ignore it, they, and right now, if you did, say if you worked for the Chinese 10 years ago, and you're applying for a very sensitive government job now, you don't have to declare that. So this will make it so that you have to declare it, and by the sound of it, it's going to be enforced. This is going to have a massive impact on the so-called lobbyists in Washington, D.C., who are really agents of China or Iran or other foreign countries. This is a very significant step in tightening up American security.
And so this bill has bipartisan support in the House. Congressman Mike Gallagher, who's head of the China Select Committee, has said that the move is important at a time when China and other adversaries are using foreign agents to mount influence campaigns and wantonly perpetrate transnational repression in our country. What's your reaction to that?
Look, 100%. I think the biggest problem America actually has is foreign infiltration, foreign influence. These lobbyists are the reason we could have a nuclear deal with Iran again soon, giving them the bomb. They're the reason that China can basically pillage the American economy with no repercussions, buy up farmland, buy up technology, because there are so many undeclared lobbyists working on legislators to make sure these channels stay open. This is going to close off a massive loophole in the system. I think it's a brilliant idea. It's got to be enforced. And I hope there are significant jail penalties for anybody who tries to circumvent it.
And at this time when the U.S.'s tensions with China and indeed around the world, tensions keep rising, what else should the U.S. be doing to counter the CCP's influence and other actors?
Well, the CCP, under President Trump, the FBI had a China project. They were going after Chinese actors in the United States. They were actively investigating them and their links to American citizens, American legislators, etc. Biden stopped that. He cancelled that. Well, that should be reinstituted straight away. Loyalty oaths should be brought back in. Security clearances should be massively amped up. They're very superficial right now. No other country, Russia or China, would never allow anybody who had a pro-American record to become the head of the KGB or the Chinese intelligence services. So this is America's...
But Joe Biden's willing to.
Massively lax internal security, no loyalty oaths, no background checks. There's no security checks on senators or congressmen for serving on committees. I think that should be another thing that should be done. Anybody who wants to serve on a sensitive committee, you want to serve on Homeland Security, Armed Services, Intelligence, you should have a background check. You should have a clearance for that. Currently, there are no clearances for those positions. You have to get a clearance to work at the CIA, but not to head the Senate Intelligence Committee or the House Intelligence Committee. That's a massive loophole in the system that has to be closed.
That's incredible. Much to be done. Thank you so much for your analysis, Trevor Loudon. Great to hear from you.
Always good. Thank you very much, Steph.
Lawmakers had a heated 25-year-old man shortly after. The case is now under investigation, and police are still confirming the victims' identities. China has faced a spate of multiple stabbings in recent years, often targeting children. This is despite strict controls on guns in the country. And next, the story of a Romanian teacher who was wrongly imprisoned in China for 8 years. He spoke to Lee Hall, host of British Thought Leaders.
What was life like inside a Chinese prison? Well, there are two parts. The first part, like I just mentioned, is the detention house. Basically, is the place where you have to wait to get sentenced. And in China, this period can take several years. Usually, it takes about 2 years. It's very lucky if you get there with just 1 year. Usually, you have to wait for 2 full years just to appear before a judge. Nobody said you're guilty of anything. It's just that one police officer that grabbed you and threw you in there, and then that's it. During those 2 years, you're just thrown into this cage with several other people, usually 10 to 12 people in one single cage. And the cage is only 12 square meters, so about 1 square meter per person. And you can't talk to anyone. At least I couldn't talk to anyone. Very seldomly I could perhaps see a Pakistani or an Iranian man that spoke some English. Usually it's just Chinese people. They're specifically sent there so that you would have no one to consult with, no one to speak to, and that's terrible, because it doesn't matter what tribulation you're going through, but if you have someone to sort of share that with, it becomes easier. But everything that happened in this particular cage and in this particular period of time was...
Afternoon. I've heard all kinds of rumors about the Briarcliff Summit being turned into a hotel. Well, it's a rumor. That's all it is. But the rumor mill in the building says it is. Well, I contacted the Fox 5 News that was allegedly did a story on it. But I called him today, and it's all just a rumor.
We're joined now by the two leaders of that new House Select Committee on China, Congressman Mike Gallagher and Raja Krishnamoorthi. What is the message you both hope to send with it?
Well, first let me say how excited I am to work with Ranking Member Krishnamoorthi.
Robert Mueller found no evidence of conspiracy between Donald Trump's campaign and the Russians. Are you saying that Robert Mueller might be wrong? Or what are you saying?
What I'm saying is that there might be evidence of collusion, although
but if there's no evidence of collusion to rise to the level of a crime.
Two key facts are clear and compel me to support the articles of impeachment. First, President Trump attempted to pressure a foreign government to help his re-election campaign. Second, the president used the powers of his office again to obstruct a congressional investigation into that wrongdoing.
He knew when he asked Brad Raffensperger to find 11,780 votes that what he's doing is illegal, trying to overturn an election based on fictitious votes.
I think for a long time we've had very serious concerns about Donald Trump as well as members of his administration and family handling this classified material. God forbid that any of this information was leveraged for any type of financial gain.
He is a hopeless Bears fan, but he is smart and clear-eyed when it comes to the threat posed by the Chinese Communist Party. I want to send a message that the committee's work is going to be bipartisan. Speaker McCarthy wants to be bipartisan. Bipartisan.
But this spy balloon incident, things got very political very fast. How do you manage that?
Well, I echo the chairman's sentiments, and though he is a Packers fan, I am glad to work with him. Look, I think that you're absolutely right that the spy balloon incident quickly became political. Unfortunately, some folks on the other side took it as an opportunity to bash the president, even though on the whole, I think he handled it very well. One of my colleagues, unfortunately, attacked Judy Chu, the first Chinese-American congresswoman.
Judy Chu is a member of Congress from the state of California, had multiple photographs accepting honorary appointments at two groups linked directly to Chinese intelligence. That's a huge problem.
I'm hoping that the chairman will echo my sentiments with regard to Judy Chu and the attack on her.
Well, let me say, we should not question anybody's loyalty to the United States. I think that is out of bounds. It's beyond the pale. We must constantly be aware of going overboard as we try and win this competition.
So is it true you're calling in the NBA commissioner to testify?
I think if we want someone to testify and we believe their presence is essential to the committee function, I want to do it in a bipartisan fashion.
Would Miles Glow be prepared to come before Congress in front of the nation and give testimony, ma'am?
Absolutely. Miles Guo is not only CCP's enemy number one, but he's the most powerful asset to American people to fight against the CCP, to take back your country. And that's why we need Miles Guo to testify before the Congress.
We got to get down and dirty on this now. People have to be held accountable. For 6 months into this, and nothing's really happened. None of them would do anything if this audience wasn't on them 24/7.